In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how we can set up a turntable inside of Unreal Engine 4 using a level blueprint. We're also going to be taking a look at adding functionality so we can turn on and off some of our various pieces on our model and be able to do that interactively while the turntable is playing. So let's go ahead and get into this and get started. Before we get started with a level blueprint, let's talk about what a normal blueprint does. So you can see we're over here in this content area, and we would be able to do something like make a new folder, call these blueprint like this, and we could also come through, right click, and then we could say a new asset, and we would be able to make a blueprint class, or you can come down here and say blueprint class from here. And you can see there's different types of blueprints that we can work with. I'll let you go ahead and load that up, and you can take a look at these different versions of what these different blueprints do. But basically, after you create a blueprint, right and through here, you're able to save the blueprint, and it would actually be something that would be available for you in other levels that you're creating. So I'm just going to delete these real quick. That's one way of doing a blueprint. The way that we're going to be looking at is a blueprint that's very specific for the level that you're working on. So it only has an effect on this current level. But since I'm doing something pretty simple like doing a turntable, I don't want to get too complex with stuff. So it'll just be fairly simple. And if you open up a level blueprint, you just come into this area, and we're going to click, and we say open level blueprint. And we can take a look at some of the things that I've created on here. So I'm just going to come in through here. We've got this event begin play, and then we've got this sequence thing that will allow it to automatically toggle the visibility of one of our objects, and then after it does that, it toggles the visibility of a second object. And then I've got this control in there. If I hit 0, I can sit there and toggle back and forth things. I also have things to set up where if I hit the number 1 key, I can actually toggle the visibility of individual objects as well. So we'll get into the actual spinning of the camera and kind of the movement of the camera. But first, let's just take a look at some very simple stuff like this toggle visibility thing. So if you right click in this area, what we're going to do is take a look at button presses. We're going to right click in here, and you can type in 1, or you can type in 2, basically anything on your keyboard. Like if you do F, you can see these different key events. You're able to take that and then drag it out. So I want to use the number 1. If we type in 1, you can see these key events that we have here. So we've got 1, F1, F10, F11, F12, because it has the number 1 in here. Something to note, if you want to use the number pad key, you need to use this special one over here that says num1. So you can see I just am going to click that 1 here. I've got a setup where I wanted to have it to where I hit 1 on the keyboard or the number pad. And so I had to basically go in here and then type in 1 and get the numpad as well, and then run both of these out as far as if I press this, it's going to toggle the visibility of something. The other part is getting in the actual piece that you want to toggle the visibility for. So you can see we've got this little node here that says the UE4 glass cyberganic. That's the name of the part that I've got here. If I go to my different meshes, you can see here's the different pieces that I've got. I've got the body, the base, some extras for the body, his gear, and then this glass that goes over the top of it. And I've taken all these objects and I've drugged them into the world, and then I've given them a position of 0, 0, 0 in the world. Looks like I maybe rotated these guys 270 degrees. I'm not even sure why I did that, but that's their position in the world. Okay. So once they're in the world, I can actually take these pieces that you see here. So let's just say we're working on the body. So I've got this this part right here is his body. I can take that and click and then drag it into the graph that you see here. That's one way of doing it. I'll hit delete on that. Or you can see that it's selected, and we can right click and we can see that we can create a reference to that piece of geometry that we have. So that's going to give us this node that we see here. And now we want to put this together with this toggle visibility. So if we go ahead and right click in here and just start to type in toggle, and I'm going to need to turn off this context sensitive. So I'll take that off. And what I want is this rendering toggle visibility. So I'll go ahead and just click that, and you can see it's going to generate this node for us that we have. And then now we need to hook everything up. So basically, we're saying with this little white arrow, this is kind of the sequence of events that are going to happen here. We're going to press the number 1 key, and then it's going to be plugged into this node, which toggles the visibility. And we need the target, which is that piece that we want to toggle the visibility for that thing. So we're going to go ahead and hook that up like this. And I'll just move this over here a little bit to give a little bit more space. And then we want to also say if we press the number 1 key, we're going to toggle the visibility as well. So I've already used the number 1 key over here. Let's get rid of this and let's do something like the 6 key, like this. So I'll do the 6 key, and then I'll also do the number 6 key. That way we're not messing up anything that we've done over here because I've already used those. I'll pipe that in here and this one here like this. And then when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and compile like this. I'll just hide this right here. And let's go ahead and go and play the game. Okay, so now if I tap the 6 key, you can see that we're going to toggle the visibility on and off for the body. So that's what was set up for all these different pieces that you see here. So I've got this ability to toggle on and off their visibility based off of that little tiny setup that we just did within here. All right, let's go back into the level blueprint and take a look here. And the next thing we're going to kind of toggle is this this sequence of things, right? So you can see whenever we come in and we play this thing, automatically it hides 2 objects for us. It hides the gear and it hides the windshield that's on his gear. So let's talk about why that's happening. Sometimes when you create a blueprint, you need certain events to feel as if they're happening all at the same time. But the way the blueprint system actually works, it needs to fire off maybe like one event and then another event right after that. So you can see we're kind of looking at this kind of flow of things, and you've got these kind of arrows, and then everything kind of flows into here. If you think of kind of like energy, we need this energy to flow out somewhere else. But this is kind of a little self-contained system. But we need certain events like this to happen, and like I said, to feel as if it's happening simultaneously. What we've got to start to drive this whole thing is this event begin play. So if you just right click in here and say event and then do begin, you can find the event begin play node within here like that. There's only going to be one in here because it's saying as soon as the game plays, this is you know, something that kind of kicks off like this energy flow that we're going to be pushing through these different arrows. And so what we're using is this sequence node. So you can just right click in here and type in sequence like that, and you should be able to get this flow control for the sequence. And if you need multiple things to happen, you can see it's got 2 pins on there already for you. But if you need to add another pin, you can just keep clicking this, and depending on how many things you need to happen or whatever, you know, you can keep adding those different pins. So basically we got this same kind of setup that we have over here, and I'm actually going to get rid of this thing. We don't really need it anymore, I was just for this example. So these were all set up the same way, where we've got these button presses for 2 and we've got these different pieces. And basically I want it to say whenever the game starts up, I want it to toggle the visibility of these 2 different pieces. They're already in the world and they're already visible, so what it's going to do is toggle them to be off. And so with this sequence node, I'll get rid of this one, so we're just looking at this example here. It's saying for this first part, run out to here and toggle the visibility of this piece, the glass. And then after we do that, we're going to go and toggle the visibility of the gear. And I also put this control in here for the number 0, that if we hit the number 0, it'll run through this and do it again. So I'm going to compile this thing, and we'll just minimize this right here, and we'll play. So what we've got going on here, it starts the game up, and it automatically hides those 2 pieces for us. Now if I type the 0 key, you can see it's going to run through and turn on and off that visibility. So it's running that sequence every time I tap 0. So when I tap it this time, it toggles the visibility to be off, and then it basically is flip-flopping and changing the states for these two different things that we see here. So that's what's going on there with that. Let's open up this level blueprint again and take a look. So again, if I wanted it to continue to toggle more things, I could add another pen and then just run this out to the visibility here. And let's see, this one is the body and the eyes and the tongue, and I want to keep that. So basically I would be saying I would toggle the visibility of everything else except for the body, and then there's a base part to this. So I'll just compile this and we'll take a look at this. So this time when I play, you can see it's going to hide the base and everything else on here. I don't have these parts set up here for the we've got these body extra stuff that you see here. So it would be a matter of me having to come through here in the level blueprint and making a new part for that. Since one thing's already set up, it would be pretty easy to just kind of drag this thing in here. I could copy the whole kind of setup. Let me take this part for the spinning part, and I'll just move this down out of the way a little bit like this here. So I could just take this whole setup that we've got, I could copy it and I could paste it, and I've got the pieces, like, you know, the structure that I need for this, but I've got this body extra, and I would replace this with the target on here like that. And then maybe for this we were using the number 6, right? So just right click in here and say 6, and then I'll click this one here, I'll do 6 again and get the number key, and then I'll replace that setup that we have just like that, and then we should be good to go. And again, if I want to have everything be visible or toggled invisible whenever we start, except for the body, I'll just push this out to the side because this one's different than everybody else. Then we need just one more pen for this thing. So I'll just say add pen, and then we'll click, and then we'll drag this out here into this part like this. And so now whenever we play, let's compile this, it should toggle the visibility of everything except for just the body, right? And so we still have that functionality where we can bring everything back by doing their button presses, but we're telling it at the very beginning of this thing what to do with the visibility on there. So we'll go back to the level blueprints and we'll take a look at that. So there's that setup. It's possible that you could take a section of this, and you might want to just tap C, and you can actually give a comment for this, and you could just call this, you know, tog, and then this is for the body, something like that. So if you want to be organized with stuff, it's possible that you can do that as well, and this is kind of cool. After you make that comment, you can click and drag this thing. So again, you just drag out the pieces that you want to comment, you just type C for this, and I can call this tog, and then this is the body extras like this. So it just kind of helps you, like, even for yourself when you come back to this and take a look, it can kind of help you keep organized with your stuff, but also if you're working on a team, it can be really useful as well. All right, now we'll start taking a look at the parts of this that actually make the blueprint where these pieces spin around in place, and we have a camera that just kind of moves in closer to the model and fades from black to being fully visible, and then fully visible to fading out to black again. We're actually doing the camera part with a thing called matinee, so we'll start looking at matinee right off of the bat. Let's go up here, and you can see if you go under matinee, you can create a new matinee by hitting add matinee, and that's what's been created here for what you see. I'm going to double click this and just open this up. So this is the area of UE4 where you can actually take things like cameras and other elements and animate them over time. This is what I have currently for one of the cameras that's put into the world. So if I minimize this quite a bit, we can see if I take the time slider and drag this thing over kind of what's going on. So it starts off and there's a director track up top here, and it's kind of really squished, and we'll talk about this, but this is where you can actually do the fading part, and there's keys on this to go from full black to fading in. And then we also have this movement part of our camera down here, so the camera just kind of slowly moves in towards the model like this, and then it fades out to black up here. So how that was done, if we come down here to the bottom, I'll just close this all up right here like this. I'm going to do this part where I'm going to just say add a new camera group, and I'm going to call this cam slow pan, and I'll do 3 because I've already done a different version of that. What you see here is it's going to make this new group for our camera. If we click on this little icon, we can actually see through the camera itself like this. It's going to make a keyframe right off the bat for wherever we're at with the camera. What I could do is take this keyframe that we have and select it, and you can see all this turns kind of red. That means whatever you do to the camera, it's going to reset a new keyframe for you at that point. So I'm just going to try to get this thing zoomed out a little bit, maybe right in through here like this, to get the position set for this. And I'm real sorry, this kind of works a little bit better if you have a dual monitor setup, so I'm going to have to kind of push things around a little bit just to be able to see. And then I'm going to take this time slider that we see and drag it all the way to the right. Now yours is probably set at a lower key, like 4 or 5, something like that. You can increase the amount of keys, like frames that you're going to be doing, by taking these little triangles and then clicking them and then dragging them out a little bit further like this. So I'll just keep this right here like that, and I'll drag this thing out to the end. I've got about 11 keys or 11 frames that you see here, and then once I have it set in a new location, I'll just kind of zoom the thing in on this guy right here like that, and while the movement is selected right here, I'll say add key, and it's going to add a new keyframe for me. So you can see I can try the slider out and just check this thing out and make sure everything's working the way that I would hope for. Now if we want, we can make sure that this thing is really snapped up top here. If we turn on the keys right here, we can see the key data for this, or you can see this overall key that we have here. Here's the key at the very beginning. If we right click over this, we can say set the time, make sure it's set to 0. This one, we can click it and right click and say set time, and we'll make sure we're at 12 seconds here like that. You can also change the value of this. So the value is 4.8, maybe I do something like 5 like that, and we can kind of see what we've got going on here. Something interesting to note about what we're setting here, it's a movement track, but it actually contains translation and rotation data together. So if we want to split those apart and start working with those independently, we can do that. We can go right click over the movement track and we can say split translation and rotation, and then now we can start to see individual keyframes for this. I'm just middle mouse dragging to kind of get this zoomed in here, and I need to pull this over a bit so we can see this little slider so I can come down here. So see how it split this into translation and rotation? Now we can click on this icon and I can see all of the translation information that we have on this, or I could deselect that and put it on rotation and through here, and now we can see the rotation data that we have. So I'm going to actually set the rotation on all this. I'm going to right click on here and set the value, and I probably have a little bit of values on this stuff. I don't want any kind of real value on here. That one, hold on, do for that. I think that one should be set to -90. I just want the camera to be nice and straight, and if it's hard for me to see the different breakdown of this, I can turn all these off and just turn on here. I'm looking at X for rotation, and I've got that set to 0. This one, if I turn this one on, I'll right click in here and say set value. We've got 0 for that, and then on Z it looks like if we set the value on this one, we're at -90. So we're good with that. I can come down here to the values at frame 12, set the value of that. I'll set that to -90 like this, and then make sure the other ones, I'm just going to look at this, set the value and put that at 0, and go to this one and set it at 0 as well. I don't want any kind of rotation on my camera at all. I just want to hold the position of it. So there's the rotation, set that up, and I'll scroll up a little bit for this for the translation. So now we'll look at translating in X, and there's some slight movement of that. I don't want to mess with that. I'm going to set the value of this. I'm going to actually put this to 0. Let's see what happens whenever I put it at 0. You see here's my origin thing here, and if I put the translation of X to 0 and then play that, we'll see where we're kind of lining up there. So there's X, and then here's Y, which is going to be that movement. You can see Y is this little green thing here. That's actually the push that's going towards the object. So this is this nice ease in and ease out of things for that. Let's see the value of this. I'll just set the value on here, and I'll do just a whole number. Let's just do 360 units for that. And if I set the value of this thing at the very beginning, we've got this at 8. I'll just put it like 870 or something like that, and drag this over. And then now we'll set the location for Z, which is the up and down of the camera. So I'll just right click and say set value, and let's just do 360 for that one as well. I'll just move this time slider just to see the final change of that, and then I'll set the value at the very end to just something like 570, just so I'm giving myself some whole numbers to look at. And so now that I've got that done, let's minimize this right here, and I'll try to play this thing through just so we can see that. Let me move this thing over. Sometimes if you select the actual camera itself that is made for this, you can actually see a little representation in the world, and that's not playing nice for me. So I was hoping I could actually see that. I'm still trying to come to terms with how to actually do this on a single monitor setup and still be able to see everything well. So that's kind of a challenge, at least for me right now, using this tool through here. So I'm just going to drag this slider. So that's going to give me this motion that we've got going on here. The other part for that is setting up a director group. Okay, I can only have one director group in here, and so I had to delete the one I had just to kind of show you the process for this. So I'm just going to right click in this area, and you can see we can say add new director group like this, and it's going to give us this new kind of slot up here that we're going to be able to do some different things with it. So we can select the director group, and we can actually look through it, and that's going to basically show us the same thing that we would have before with this camera down here, but we're going to add a keyframe. And so when we add the keyframe, it's going to ask us basically what camera do you want to use, and so I just created this new cam slow pan 3. I'll just do that and hit OK, and you can see it fills this area with that camera. So now as we look through the animation, we're looking through that particular camera. Now it would be possible that we could come through and add another keyframe, and if you had multiple cameras, like I can choose a different camera that we got here, and you can see it's going to switch between these two cameras. Now they look very similar, so that's why you see this little pop, but you can see we're basically, this is our first camera, second camera, right in through there like that. And so I'm just going to take this key, get rid of it. It's going to fill the entire time slot with this thing. So that's pretty important to make sure you get this director group. You have to have that if you want to play the matinee that we've got going on here. The next thing I'm going to do is just go and select the director group, and I'm going to do a fade track. So we just come straight down here and go to add new fade track, and then on here we'll select this and we'll set a keyframe for it right at the very beginning, and then on like around frame 1 second, we'll add another keyframe. We'll go back to this key, we'll just select it, and we'll right click and say set value, and we can say 1 like that, and it's going to make it pure black like this, and we can come through here, make a key, and then go to the very end and add another key, and we'll just right click over it and say set the value of that, and we'll make it 1 like that. So that's going to fade in and fade out for us, just like that. Okay, so that's how the camera portion of this thing was actually set up and through here. The next part is us taking this, and we're going to, through Blueprint, rotate all the different objects, and while this camera thing is playing, you can see it's just going to loop over and over, zooming in onto the object and then fading out. And so as it does that, all the pieces rotate, and so it gives you this kind of cool look as it goes through the different stages of the model until it gets completely all the way around the character, and just rotates 360 degrees, and that's on a loop too, so it just kind of infinitely kind of loops that way. Alright, now that we have our matinee actually created, let's look at the different ways that we can actually get this thing to play. So you can see if we have the matinee in our world somewhere, we can actually just select the thing, and you can see with this node, if we go to the details panel, if we want to do something very simple, we can tell it to play on level load right here, and if you want it to loop, you can tell it to loop like this right here. So that just means as soon as you hit the play button, it's actually going to go into this play mode, and that's probably the simplest way of controlling it. The other way that we can control it is we go into our level blueprints. We can go to open level blueprint and come to this area, and I'll open this up. And with this one, we need something to tell it that the game is actually starting to play. Let me just make sure I don't have anything else in here with event begin play. And I think this node was actually just here by default. So if you don't see it, you're going to have to go ahead and create that. You can just right click and start the, type in event begin play, and you should be able to get that node. You can only have one of them in your level blueprint. So because I already have one, here it is. And basically I'll just take my matinee, and I'll click and drag it into the level blueprint right here like this, and then I can drag off of here and type in play like this, and then I can just do play from here, and I would be able to run this event begin play right into this part here. Now if I needed this event begin play to kick off anything else and we need to run the out from that, you can just start it off that way if you wanted to. So those are the two different ways to get your matinee to play. Like I said, the easiest way is to just come in here to this node here and begin the play on level load. It's basically going to do the same thing you see here, and it'll be set to looping. Now if you tell it to play within the level blueprint and you want it to loop, you're still going to be using this key right here for the looping part. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. Don't really need it for this. I'll say compile, and I'll save that. Okay, now that we have our matinee created, let's go ahead and open up the level blueprint, and we're going to be taking a look at this section on how we can make our objects actually rotate during the animation that we're setting up. But before we get started, let's go ahead and make sure that we are taking our objects and making sure that their mobility is set to movable like this. You can see all the different pieces that I have need to be set to movable, and yours will be too. This is going to allow the different pieces to actually have motion to them, so that's a pretty important step to make sure that you're doing. Once that's set up with all your different objects, it's just a matter of coming up here and going to blueprints, and then going to open level blueprint right in here. Okay, here we are in the level blueprint. Again, we can just come up here from blueprints and say open level blueprint to see this particular area. So here's kind of what's going on. We've got this node called an event tick node, and this is fed into add actor local rotation. And once we make these nodes and hook them together, we're actually able to take the object that we have. And so I showed you that before. If we just have this object in the world, we can select it, and you can see it within here. you can actually click and drag it right into this area to get that node that we see, or it's possible to have it selected like we have here, and then just right click and say create reference to that thing. So this is going to give us that node that we're going to be able to kind of hook into everything. What I used was the base of this, and I'm going to rotate the base, and then you can see after the rotation is set up, we have this attach to actor node, which allows us to attach other things as far as like a parent kind of setup. So anything that happens to this object, like translation wise or rotation wise, it will drive all these other things as well. So I've got all my lights and all the other pieces, and they're attached to that actor. So you can see that if we just do this make rotation that we've got here, make rotation like this is going to give us this node. And if we go ahead and plug it directly into this area here, this is a multiply node, but we can actually get that by just clicking this return value and dragging out, and then just typing in mult, and then we can do this scale rotator. And you can see it's going to give us this kind of setup where we can take the delta seconds and plug it in here like this, and then run this out into the delta rotation. So that gives us that setup that we're looking for in that part. And you can see that we're actually telling it to rotate with the yaw, which is this kind of direction going around here like this. So it just spins the object about that axis, going right straight up through the center of it. And this value controls how fast it's actually going to rotate around. So I'll get rid of these pieces that you see here. So this little setup is everything that we need to actually make the rotation happen on that object. Now the next part is feeding this into the attach to actor node. Let's just go right click in here and say attach to actor like this, and make sure we're using the right one for this one. So this is the attach to actor node. We got to run the kind of power that's running from this, the event tick, and then run that out, and then pipe that into here. And then we need a parent. What is actually driving everything to be attached to? So we've already got this node here for the base, so I just pipe that into this in parent actor in that area. And then I just pulled in all the different pieces, just like we looked at before, like clicking and dragging them into this area like that. And that actually pulled on all these different pieces, all the different lights, and just attached that to this target area. And once that's set up, then it's possible for us to go ahead and compile, and then when we play the matinee along with the blueprint, this is the result that we get. We get the object, the base that's spinning around, all the different pieces are parented to it and just rotating into place, and then that camera just moves in nice and easy up towards the thing. So there's a lot of different ways that we could probably approach this thing. This is just this kind of setup that I found that I like, and it seems kind of weird to maybe use the matinee in conjunction with the blueprint. It's possible that you could do all this in blueprint, but like I said, I just found this to be pretty effective and to be pretty easy as far as getting into matinee and then just setting up a real simple keyframe thing. So this is definitely a very kind of newbie kind of setup, but I think it's pretty effective, and it does the job. All right, there's only one last little tidbit of information that I want to give you through this whole process, and that's how to actually render out a movie from your matinee that you have set up. So we can actually go under the matinee section, open up our matinee, and this is the window that you see here that we've got open. If you open this up all the way, you'll see that there's actually a recorder, and then there's a movie. We'll look at the movie. We'll go ahead and say create movie, and you can see you can choose the format. If you wanted individual frames, you could do that. But if you wanted to capture it as an AVI movie, you're able to do that as well. You can tell it to be a custom size. I was using 1920 by 1080, the amount of frames per section that you get on here. You can also tell the editor to close whenever this capture starts. So you can also turn on the cinematic mode, which will disable these different things that you got seeing here, and disable texture streaming. That will definitely help if you want a high quality movie and don't want to kind of mess with any of the textures kind of streaming in or not. So you can hit OK, and whenever this happens, you'll see it will begin to actually record a movie. The thing that's a little bit weird about this process is the only way to stop it is you have to go into your task manager and then kill the thing that is actually sitting there rendering. So I was definitely just kind of letting it go through, capturing it all the way through one kind of rotation, and then maybe going into something like After Effects or something like that, and then kind of cleaning it up to make sure that it loops correctly. So it is possible with the matinee if you had a certain amount of time. I think there's a way that you can kind of kill it that way, but you still are probably going to have to go into the task manager. The other thing is the screen's going to look really kind of weird whenever you see this thing playing in the background. So the colors are all going to be wrong and everything else like that. And so don't be alarmed by that. It's just part of the recording process, and then when you go to play back the thing, it'll actually look pretty good. So that's everything about getting a nice turntable set up and how you can actually render out the final results whenever you're done.